This life, I refused to be the stepping stone. They called me the perfect woman of the Carter family for 25 years. In the eyes of the neighbors, I was the most filial daughter-in-law, willingly caring for my bedridden mother-in-law for 15 of those years. I cleaned up her incontinence, massaged her atrophied limbs, and read to her until she fell asleep, all while my husband, Nathan, built his career. In the eyes of my husband's colleagues, I was the unshakable foundation. I used my entire dowry to fund his research. I leveraged my family's connections to get him published in prestigious journals. I transformed Nathan Carter from a small-town high school teacher into a renowned university professor. Everyone praised me. Emily Lane is a saint, they said. A virtuous wife, a good mother, the greatest benefactor of the Carter family. On her deathbed, my mother-in-law, Grace Carter, held my hand with her papery thin fingers. Her eyes were glassy with tears. Emily, she rasped, in my next life I will still want you as my daughter-in-law. You are the only good thing my son ever did. Nathan stood behind me, his hand on my shoulder. His grip felt heavy, warm, but something in the pressure was off. I was too exhausted to notice. He leaned down and whispered into my ear, his voice thick with what I believed was gratitude. Emily, you have worked so hard all these years. You've suffered because of me. From now on, it's my turn. I will make it up to you. I will give you everything you deserve. Tears streamed down my face. Finally, after a quarter of a century of sacrifice, poverty, and exhaustion, my suffering was over. The prison door was finally opening. My mother-in-law took her last breath that night. Her hand went limp in mine. The funeral was 3 days later. Gray skies, cold rain, the smell of damp earth. I stood by the grave, wearing a black dress, my eyes red and swollen. I had organized everything: the flowers, the priest, the condolences. I was the perfect widow, even if I was only a daughter-in-law. After the burial, we returned to the house. I was mentally and physically drained. I went to the kitchen to make tea, my hands trembling from fatigue. Nathan walked in. He wasn't crying. His face was a mask I had never seen before, cold, hard, and carved with impatience. Nathan, I said softly, trying to smile. We did it. We saw her through to the end. He didn't smile back. He placed a thick envelope on the kitchen table. My blood ran cold before I even opened it. I slid the papers out. Divorce petition for dissolution of marriage. What is this? I stammered, my voice a stranger's whisper. The end of a bad investment, he said, his voice flat, devoid of the warmth he had shown at the graveside just hours ago. Sign it, Emily. I couldn't breathe. A bad investment. I gave you 25 years. I gave you my youth, my money, my family. You gave me a duty, he snapped, his refined, gentle mask finally cracking to reveal the venom beneath. A performance. A burden of guilt I had to carry every single day. Do you think I wanted a wife who was a saint? A woman everyone pointed at and said, Nathan, you owe her everything. He walked to the living room door and pulled it open. You can come out now. My heart stopped. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this. Let's continue. Lily Hart, my childhood best friend, my sister in all but blood, walked in. She was wearing a cashmere sweater I had bought for her birthday. She was wearing my perfume. Her face was the picture of apologetic innocence, the same face she had worn for 25 years every time she came to comfort Nathan while I was changing his mother's soiled sheets. Emily, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you, she said, her voice a practiced melody of false sympathy. Love just can't be controlled, she continued, walking to Nathan's side and threading her fingers through his. You and Nathan were never right for each other. You were more like a servant. A donor. I am his soulmate. Nathan put his arm around her, pulling her close. He looked at me with pure, unadulterated disgust. Emily Lane, he said, each word a slap. I have tolerated you for 25 years. Every meal you cooked, every penny you earned, every night you lay in that bed, it was all an act of charity on my part. Finally, I am free. The only woman I have ever loved is Lily. He pushed the divorce papers towards me with his fingertip. You will leave with nothing. The house, the savings, the car, it's all in my name or my mother's. And what was your mother's, you gave to me willingly. So there is nothing left for you. Sign. And get out. Lily leaned her head on his shoulder, looking at me with a triumphant smirk she didn't even bother to hide anymore. I signed. My hand moved automatically, the pen scratching against the paper like a knife scraping bone. I didn't fight. I had no strength left. The woman who had sacrificed everything was a hollow shell. I walked out of that house with only a small suitcase. No money, no home, no future. For 2 weeks, I wandered the streets. I stayed in a filthy motel, then a shelter. I called my parents, but Nathan had poisoned them years ago, painting me as hysterical, an ingrate who abandoned a good man. They didn't believe me. One rainy night, I was crossing a street, my head down, the cold rain mixing with my tears. I didn't see the truck. The headlights were blinding, a sudden silent explosion of white light. The last thing I felt was not pain. It was a bone-deep, crushing sense of injustice. I never deserved this. Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, the world was too bright and too loud. I was sitting in a hard wooden chair. The air smelled of stale tea and cigarette smoke. A fat woman in a gaudy red dress was chattering nonstop. "Oh, Miss Lane, you have no idea how lucky you are, Mrs. Warren," the town matchmaker was saying, her wide face beaming. "This young man, Nathan Carter, he is a true hidden gem. Good character, filial, respectful, and so ambitious. Whoever marries him will be blessed for a lifetime." My heart slammed against my ribs. I knew this room. I knew this woman. I knew these words. This was the tea house. The blind date. 25 years ago. I looked down at my hands. Young, smooth. No wrinkles, no calluses from scrubbing laundry by hand. My engagement ring, the one my grandmother gave me, was still on my finger. I hadn't sold it to fund Nathan's first book yet. I looked up. Across the table, a man was smiling at me. Refined, courteous, wearing a pair of modest wire-rimmed glasses. His smile was warm, his eyes seemingly full of sincerity. Nathan Carter. Young, handsome, and a monster. "Miss Lane," he said, his voice a gentle, educated baritone. "I know first meetings can be awkward, but I feel a connection. I hope we can take our time to get to know each other." He was good. So good. In my past life, that gentle voice and those sincere eyes had deceived me for decades. The memory of the truck's headlights, the cold rain, his voice saying, "I have tolerated you," it all rushed back, a tidal wave of rage and grief. Then a slow, cold smile touched my lips. "No, not this time." I picked up his matchmaking profile, the one that listed his excellent qualities, and dropped it into the half-full trash can beside my chair. "Sorry, Mrs. Warren," I said, my voice perfectly level. "I don't think we're a good match." The smile froze on Nathan's face. The tea house fell silent. "Mrs. Warren's jaw dropped. "Miss Lane," Nathan said, adjusting his glasses, his composure flickering. "Have I done something to offend you?" "We can take our time, Mr. Carter," I interrupted. "There is no misunderstanding. You're a good man. I'm just not the right woman for you. I prefer a man who has already achieved something, not one who needs a stepping stone to climb." A sharp inhale from Mrs. Warren. A flicker of rage in Nathan's eyes before he masked it. I stood up, picking up my bag. "Emily," Nathan reached out and grabbed my wrist. His grip was tight, desperate. I looked down at his hand, then back at his face. My gaze was like ice. "Remove your hand, Mr. Carter. We are strangers." He flinched and let go. "Miss Lane," he tried again, his voice strained. "I promised my mother I would find a gentle wife. Someone like you. Could you not at least meet her, then keep looking?" I said, shaking off his hand. "But do not follow me. It looks bad for a man of your hidden gem reputation." I walked out of the tea house. The early summer breeze hit my face, carrying the scent of blooming magnolias. I took a deep, shuddering breath. Good. I have time. I have my life. I have my soul back. My phone rang. The screen flashed Lily Hart. I let it ring for a few seconds, savoring the moment. Then I answered. Emily, her voice was soft, gentle, full of fake concern. "How did the blind date go?" "I heard Mr. Carter is a real gem." "Did you like him?" I leaned against a sycamore tree, watching the dappled shade dance on the pavement. A slow, dangerous smile spread across my face. "I met him, Lily, that's wonderful. So how is he just as Mrs.? Warren said. I replied lightly. A hidden gem. On the other end of the line, Lily sighed with relief. I knew it. Emily, you have to seize this opportunity. For us women, marrying a good man is the most important thing. Don't worry, once you marry him, I'll treat him like my own brother. I'll support you both however I can, the same words. The exact same words from my past life. Back then, she had used those words to get close to him. She had worn my dresses, cooked my recipes, and eventually shared my husband's bed. I closed my eyes, suppressing the surge of hatred. Lily, I said, my voice sweet as poisoned honey. If you think he's so good, why don't I just hand this blessing over to you? A sharp intake of breaths. Silence. Emily. What are you saying? Her voice turned flustered. We're best friends. I could never, between friends isn't sharing good things the point. I cut her off gently. Didn't you always say you wanted a man who's ambitious, filial, and good to you? Nathan Carter fits every single one of your requirements, but he was your blind date, she stammered. I already turned him down. I looked at the bustling street outside, feeling a sense of freedom I had never known. He's a free agent now. You have Mrs. Warren's number, right? Hurry, Lily. A stock with this much potential, if you hesitate, you'll lose your chance forever. I hung up before she could respond. I pictured Lily's face, shocked, then thrilled, then calculating. In my past life, she had spent years praising Nathan to me, encouraging me to sacrifice more to clear the path for his success. She just wanted me to do the hard work so she could step in at the finish line and claim the prize. This time, I was handing him to her on a silver platter. Let's see how far her gentle and obedient love takes her when she has to pay the bills, care for his mother, and fund his ambitions herself. When I got home, my mother was waiting on the sofa. My father poked his head out of his study. They were good people, traditional, hardworking. In my last life, they had adored Nathan's. They had believed his lies. How was it? My mother asked eagerly. Mr. Carter, I sat down beside her. Mom, Dad. I don't like him, my mother's face fell. Why not? Mrs. Warren said he's a catch. He told me his mother is sick and needs long-term medication. I said, calmly stripping away the gilded facade of his filial piety. He has a younger brother in college. All the household expenses depend on his salary alone. He has no savings, no house, no car. My mother's expression curdled. That's too heavy a burden. Yes, I agreed. Besides, I don't want to get married so soon. I looked at them, my eyes shining with a sincerity I had buried for 25 years. I want to pick up my paintbrush again. I want to apply for graduate school at the Academy of Fine Arts. That was the dream I had killed for Nathan. Once I'm stable, I'll support you, he had promised. But when he became a professor, he said, you're almost 40. What's the point of studying? Just stay home and be quiet. My father was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. If you want to take the exam, take it. We'll manage. My eyes stung. I nodded firmly. The next week, I threw myself into my art. I rented a small studio in the city's art district, using a small inheritance from my grandmother that Nathan had made me hide for emergencies. In my past life, he had found it and spent it on his first research trip. Now it was my ticket to freedom. I was in an art supply store, loading my basket with canvases and oils, when a shadow fell over me. Emily Lane, the voice was deep, smooth, and familiar in a way that made my heart stutter. I looked up. Jason Song. He was tall, with sharp features and dark eyes that seemed to see right through you. In high school, he had been the most popular boy, rich, carefree, and brilliant. I had been a quiet, rule-following art nerd. We had barely spoken. But in my past life, I had seen him at academic conferences, a successful designer. He had always looked right past me. Now he was looking at me. Intently. Jason, I said, surprised. I thought that was you. He tilted his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. I heard you turned down Nathan Carter. The whole town is talking about it. Mrs. Warren is furious. Good, I said dryly. He laughed. A low, genuine sound. I never liked him. There's something hollow behind those glasses of his. My heart skipped. No one else had ever seen that. No one except me, and only after 25 years. I'm preparing for the graduate art exam, I said, changing the subject. I'm looking for a good studio. Jason's eyes lit up. I know a place. South District. Old warehouse conversion, great light, quiet. A friend is renting it out. I can take you there tomorrow. I hesitated. Trusting a man was a dangerous thing. But his eyes, they held no expectation, no demand. Just a quiet, steady kindness. All right, I said. The studio was perfect. High ceilings, north-facing windows, a wall covered in ivy. I fell in love the moment I saw it. The rent was suspiciously low. Jason, I said, frowning. This is too cheap. My friend just wants someone who will take care of the place, he said, not meeting my eyes. Don't worry about it. I didn't believe him, but I signed the lease anyway. It was my sanctuary. I spent every waking moment there, relearning how to mix colors, how to find my voice on the canvas. Jason would often drop by. He never stayed long, but he always brought something rare: art books, a coffee, a quiet piece of advice. You're holding back, he said one day, looking at a portrait I was working on. Your technique is flawless, but your heart is closed. You're painting what you see, not what you feel. I stared at him. No one had ever said that to me. Not even my art school professors. How do you know? I whispered. He met my gaze. Because I do the same thing. There was a depth of sadness in his eyes that I recognized. A pain he carried alone. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I felt seen. A month later, the piece shattered. I received a call from an unknown number. I answered and a frail, elderly voice spoke. Miss Lane. This is Grace Carter. Nathan's mother. I froze. The manipulative saint. The woman who had held my hand on her deathbed and thanked me for my servitude. I know my son isn't worthy of you, she said, her voice trembling. But I just want to meet you. Just once. I'm in the hospital. My heart, I fear I won't make it. Please pity an old woman, won't you? The same script. The same manipulation. In my past life, I had rushed to her side, only to be trapped by her tears and Nathan's false promises. All right, I said, my voice flat. Send me the address. I'll come tomorrow. I hung up and stared out the window. You want a performance, Mrs. Carter? I'll give you one. But this time the script is mine. The next afternoon, I arrived at the hospital. Lily Hart was waiting at the entrance, dressed in a demure white dress, her face a mask of worried innocence. Emily, she cried, grabbing my arms. Thank God you're here. Auntie has been asking for you all day. She hasn't eaten a thing. I gently pulled my arm free. Then let's not keep her waiting. Lily's eyes flickered, but she led me inside. The hospital room was thick with the smell of medicine and cheap flowers. Nathan was sitting by the bed, holding his mother's hand. The picture of filial devotion. As soon as Mrs. Carter saw me, her eyes lit up. Emily. My dear girl, I sat down in the chair beside the bed. Not too close. Not too far. She grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong for a dying woman. Such a good girl. I know you're kind. Please give my son another chance. He's a good man. He'll have a bright future. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lily's jaw tighten. I looked at Mrs. Carter's tear-streaked face, Nathan's hopeful expression, Lily's hidden jealousy. 3 actors, 1 stage. Mrs. Carter, I said slowly, there are many men with bright futures. But I don't enjoy doing charity work. The silence was deafening. Mrs. Carter's face froze. Nathan's eyes widened in shock. Lily's mouth fell open. What did you say? Nathan stammered. I said I don't enjoy charity work. I repeated, enunciating each word. Mr. Carter, how much do you earn each month? Is it enough to pay for your mother's medication, your brother's tuition, and support a wife? My parents didn't raise me for 25 years so I could marry into poverty and change a grown man's diapers. Nathan shot to his feet, his face crimson. You're insulting me. I'm stating facts. I stood up, looking him dead in the eye. And besides, Mr. Carter, you're looking at the wrong woman. I turned to Lily. Her face was pale, her hands clenched into fists. Lily, I said, my voice dripping with false sweetness. Haven't you always said Nathan is a blue-chip stock? A man of good character. Whoever marries him is blessed. Well then, I'm handing that blessing to you. You should be thanking me. Lily's face turned beet red. Nathan looked like he had been slapped. At that moment, the door opened. Jason Song walked in. He was dressed in a dark suit, his presence instantly shifting the energy in the room. His cold gaze swept over Nathan and Lily before settling on me. "Emily," he said, ignoring everyone else. "I have the documents you asked for. Also, that studio in the South District. My friend is willing to sell it to you for a fair price. I've brought the contract." He handed me a folder. Inside was a single blank sheet of paper. But Nathan and Lily didn't know that. Nathan's eyes darted between Jason and me, suspicion and jealousy warring on his face. "Who are you?" Jason turned to him, his gaze like ice. "None of your business." He looked back at me, his voice softening. "The smell in here is awful. Let's go." I nodded and walked out with him without looking back. In the car, the silence stretched. Jason drove with his eyes fixed on the road, his jaw tight. "Thank you," I said finally. "That was fortuitous timing. I was in the hospital visiting my grandfather," he said quietly. "I overheard everything." I looked at him surprised. "That family is a swamp," he continued, his voice hard. "Once you've fallen in, you should know to stay far away." My heart skipped. "Once you've fallen in. Why do you talk like I've already been through it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned to face me. His dark eyes held mine, deep and serious, lit by the glow of the setting sun. "Because in my last life," he said quietly, "I watched you die." My blood turned to ice. "What?" "I saw you at the car accident," he continued, his voice steady but his hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. "I saw Nathan and Lily standing across the street, watching coldly. I called the ambulance. I took care of your arrangements. Your parents were too old and your best friend was too busy celebrating." Tears blurred my vision. I remembered the rain, the truck, the crushing loneliness of my deaths. And I remembered a tall figure standing in the background, just out of reach. "That was you," I whispered. "I had loved you since high school, Emily," he admitted, his voice raw. I was too proud to say it. I thought I had time. And then you married him, and I thought I had lost you forever. When you died, I swore that if I ever got a second chance, I would not let you make the same mistake." He reached out and gently wiped a tear from my cheek. "This life, you are not alone. And you are not his stepping stone." That night, I couldn't sleep. The revelations spun in my head like a tornado. Jason had loved me for 2 lifetimes. He had watched me die. And now he was offering me a hand. But could I trust him? Nathan had also seemed perfect in the beginning. The next morning, I threw myself into my art. The graduate exam was in 3 months. I had to focus. I couldn't afford distractions. But Jason was patient. He didn't push. He didn't demand. He just appeared. A text message wishing me luck before an exam. A book on Renaissance painting techniques left on my doorstep. A quiet presence in the corner of my studio, reading while I painted. Slowly, the ice around my heart began to melt. 2 months later, Lily's plan began to unfold. I was in the studio when I saw the first post on social media. "Design student abandons poor boyfriend for rich tycoon, betrays best friend's marriage." The article was full of lies. It claimed I had turned down Nathan Carter because he was poor, then seduced him after he married my best friend, Lily. It claimed Jason was a rich sponsor I was using for his money. The comments were vicious. "What a disgusting woman, poor Lily pregnant and betrayed by her best friend. Someone should ruin her career." I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Not with fear. With rage. This was Lily's work. She was using the same playbook, but this time she was attacking from the start. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself. I just waited. The next day, the attacks intensified. Anonymous colleagues of Nathan claimed I had sabotaged his career. Fake classmates claimed I had a history of stealing boyfriends. My phone blew up with hate messages. Someone threw a brick through the window of my studio. Then on the 3rd day, Jason acted. A famous legal blogger published a detailed breakdown of the lies, complete with legal threats. Hours later, Jason's company legal department filed defamation lawsuits against Lily Hart, Nathan Carter, and 3 media outlets. But the final blow was the recordings. An anonymous source released a leaked audio file. Lily's voice was clear, sharp, and vicious. "I've posted the articles like you asked. They're going viral. When do I get the rest of my money? A male voice, her accomplice, tomorrow. Just make sure Emily Lane is completely ruined. I want her to never show her face in the city again, Lily laughed. Don't worry. She'll be a pariah. Nathan is helping me too. He's going to confirm the rumors at his university. The man's voice, doesn't he feel guilty? She was his wife, Lily. Nathan. Guilty. He hated her. He said she made him feel like a burden. I make him feel like a king. Now shut up and do your job. The audio exploded across the internet. Within hours, public opinion flipped. The people who had cursed me were now apologizing. Lily and Nathan were condemned as villains. Lily Hart is a monster, Nathan Carter is complicit, free Emily Lane, then the real consequences hit. Nathan's university announced a formal investigation into his professional conduct. His classes were canceled. His funding was frozen. Lily was arrested for defamation and online harassment. I watched it all unfold on my phone, my emotions a tangled mess. Relief. Vindication. But also a hollow sadness. They had destroyed themselves. I didn't even have to lift a finger. Jason arrived at my studio that evening. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. It's done, he said, his voice hoarse. I walked to him, took his hand, and pulled him inside. I made him tea. I made him sit. You didn't have to do all this, I said softly. Yes, I did, he said, his eyes meeting mine. In my last life, I did nothing. I watched you die. I am not making that mistake again. He put his cup down and stood up. He walked to me and gently cupped my face in his hands. Emily Lane, he said, his voice low and intense. I have loved you for 25 years. And then another 25 years of regret. I am not a patient man anymore. I need an answer, my heart pounded. Every instinct I had screamed at me to run, to protect myself, to never trust a man again. But his eyes, they held no deception. Only a deep, aching vulnerability. Jason, I whispered. I'm scared, I know, he said. So am I, he kissed me. Softly, gently, like I was something precious. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I felt safe. The graduate exam arrived. I walked into the hall with a calmness I had never known. I painted from my soul, pouring every ounce of pain, rage, and newfound hope onto the canvas. When I finished, I knew I had passed. A month later, the results came. I had been accepted into the Academy of Fine Arts with a full scholarship. That same week, the court case against Lily and Nathan began. I didn't have to attend. Jason's lawyers were ruthless. But I wanted to see their faces. The courtroom was packed with reporters. Lily sat in the dock, her face pale, her pregnant belly swollen. Nathan sat beside her, looking like a man who had been run over by a truck. When they saw me walk in, escorted by Jason, Lily's eyes blazed with hatred. Nathan just looked broken. The evidence was overwhelming. The audio recordings, the digital footprints, the testimonies from the media outlets they had paid. Lily was found guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison with a hefty fine. Nathan was found guilty of defamation and conspiracy. His university terminated his contract. He was barred from teaching for 5 years. As the judge read the verdict, Lily screamed. This isn't fair. She stole everything from me. I stood up and walked to the dock. I leaned close to her so only she could hear. Stole from you, I whispered. Lily, I gave him to you. You wanted a blue-chip stock. Now you have a convicted felon who can't get a job. Enjoy your marriage. I hope it was worth it, her face crumpled. She lunged at me, but the guards pulled her back. I turned and walked away, Jason's hand warm in mine. Outside the courthouse, the sun was shining. Reporters swarmed us, shouting questions. I held up my hand for silence. Nathan Carter and Lily Hart were never my friends, I said calmly. They were parasites. I have moved on. I am attending the Academy of Fine Arts. I am in love with a good man. And I wish them both the life they deserve. I looked directly at the camera. Karma is not a curse. It's a consequence. And it is always, always delivered, 5 years later. I stood in my gallery surrounded by my paintings. The walls were filled with color and light, each canvas a piece of my soul. The exhibition was called Resurrection. Critics called it the most important debut of the decade. Collectors were fighting to buy my work. Jason stood beside me, a glass of champagne in his hand. He was still tall, still handsome, still looking at me like I was the only woman in the world. "We did it," I said, looking around at the crowded room. "We did it," he agreed. A reporter approached us, her microphone ready. "Miss Lane, is it true that you were once married to Nathan Carter?" The disgraced professor, I smiled. "I was. Briefly." "In another life, what do you mean?" I looked at Jason. He squeezed my hand. "I mean," I said, "that I learned the hard way that love should never be a sacrifice. It should be a partnership. I spent 25 years as a stepping stone. Now I stand on my own." I raised my glass. "To second chances. And to never ever being anyone's stepping stone again." The crowd cheered. Later that night, after the gallery closed, Jason and I walked home through the quiet streets. The stars were bright overhead. "Are you happy?" he asked. I stopped and looked up at him. His face was soft in the moonlight, full of a love that had spanned 2 lifetimes. "I am free," I said. "And I am loved. What more could anyone want?" He kissed me slow and deep, and for the first time in forever, I looked forward to the future. Nathan and Lily. I heard they divorced after her prison sentence. He blamed her for ruining his career. She blamed him for being weak. They were perfect for each other. But their story was not mine. My story was just beginning. And this time, I was the one holding the pen. If you've enjoyed walking this journey of revenge and rebirth with RED Reborn English Drama, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. Your support is the biggest motivation for me to keep creating and bringing more powerful stories to life. Every comment means a lot and helps the channel grow stronger each day. Thank you for listening, and I can't wait to see you in the next story.